everyone. We are SomerSand with Johan Summers and Maggie Sand, and this is Chats About Improv. Today we have a very special guest, which is Feña Ortalli.
Hey, hello, and thank you for the invitation. First of all, great job. I love what you do. I love that you're pushing the boundaries of what we can do in this screen. So thank you very much. Like Maggie said, my name is Feña Ortalli. I'm from Argentina, but I'm living in Madrid, Spain, since 6 years now. Wow, time passes by. And I love improvisation, and especially how we create theater out of it. So everything that's connected to theater and performing arts, and if it's improvised, even better. Like many others, I saw an improv show, in this case 20 years ago or 23 years ago, and I was amazed. And again, the same story as a lot of improvisers. I watched that, I saw people having this amount of fun, and I immediately wanted to do it. I was already doing theater, but the play that I identified in that show was amazing. So I immediately convinced my group to try it. This is pre-YouTube times, so we didn't know exactly what we were doing. And then at a certain point, I found out that there was a school that was teaching, and then it all started. So 20 years later, I'm here. I teach, I play, I direct, I write a magazine about it. That's how much I love it. We just turned 11 years. Status is the magazine, and it's for me, it's a way of living. It's really everyone except my oldest friends are improv friends, are people that are connected to us through this means, and I think that's amazing. Improvisers are my favorite kind of people. It's people that I like to spend time with. So usually you will find me around other improvisers.
And the Status magazine, you started in when you moved to Madrid, is that right?
No, I started it 11 years ago in Buenos Aires. It was July 2011.
Wow.
And yes, it was already 5 years old when I moved to Madrid.
Yeah.
And you can see that when you see all the interviews and all the covers of the magazine. It started pretty local with people from Argentina, then it got wider to people from Latin America, then from the Spanish community, and then when we started publishing also in other languages, it started to cover other communities, and now it's amazing, because I never thought I would be doing the same thing 11 years later.
Wow. And you have SomerSand issue number?
It was 132.
Yeah, there's a nice article about SomerSand that you kindly published about how we do this, what we're just doing now. Yeah. So thank you very much, Feña.
It's June's issue.
Yeah.
Yes, the June issue. The topic of today will be movements on stage. Yeah, that's what the chat is about. It's also, Feña, something you're passionate about, and you also give workshops around movements on stage. So the question is, what is it?
This is a big question. First of all, what I like to say when I talk about this, or when I teach this class, this is not about body moving or movement. It's not you playing things with your body. I'm not a very physical performer, but it is how we move from one place to the other, and how we can create stronger images on stage. So basically, it's the same when I say we talk too much in improvisation and we say too little.
Yeah.
Because in this cloud of thinking, we start talking, and maybe from talking we get to an interesting idea, thought, or concept. It's like you put everything in the strainer, and eventually you find the gold. And I think we can do the other way around. It's like we talk less, everything we say, it's important. It's like saying with offers, if you offer too many things, then it loses the value. If you just make one strong offer, it is already strong because it's the only one. And it's the same with words for me, because I love words and I don't want them to waste. And I translated that into movement. We move a lot because our bodies are also looking for things to bump into. It's like, we don't know what to do, so we walk around. The improviser walk in the middle of the stage like birds flying or
Yes.
butterflies flying. It is something that I identified and I started working. And it all started when a workshop I took with Gael, Donna Perry, and Laura in Amsterdam 4 years ago. And they were working more with the physical part, but immediately it rebounded in my mind on how we can create stronger images on stage. And every time that something like that happens in my brain, I start studying and reading and looking for inspiration and reading people that are much smarter than me that already work on this. So taking some things from viewpoints, from staging, from clown even, what do we do when we are on stage and how we can move less. So each move from one place to the other means something. We can be completely silent and I could be completely emotionless. But if the movement I do from one point on the stage to another already tells a story. And for me, that's very interesting because it's the staging part. It's like if you get the text, the dramatic text, you have this, what in Spanish we say didascalias, or the stage directions. In some texts are very clear, in some other plays are not that clear. So the same play could be staged differently by different directors. So I think that's a good opportunity to develop the improviser director. This is the text, this is the scene. Yeah. How can I set it to be clearer, or even not for the sake of being clear, but for the sake of creating something beautiful?
Could you give a specific example? For example, two people are playing a scene about something, whatever. How could their stage movement illustrate the story better?
For me, it's, again, it's the importance of what you do. So usually when we see the stage, if I could have this heat map, if I could put a sensor to every improviser and then see the heat map of the stage, we will find that the center, the middle of the stage, number 5 in the grid I use, it's completely red. And it makes sense because usually it's two improvisers that get to the middle, they negotiate the scene, and then probably they separate. But there's a lot of information here. And what I want is same idea. Maybe you can do the negotiation if you needed to look at each other and to connect. But then the actual offer, the actual beginning of the scene could be with a very clear decision of I will start in this corner, I will start in this one. Because if, for instance, in an exercise I do this, and then we play the same lines in different positions, and the meaning changes. And this is, and I ask the improvisers, try not to play or to act, try not to disclosure your emotion. It's not that you're going to change it because of how you play it. It's, if I put mannequins here, it will work. Because it's just the image that we're showing. Yeah. So that's and it's something that you can direct yourself. Stay longer than you usually stay. It's the same like when you think you spend too much time quiet. It's never too much in your head. It's an hour that you've been silent, and it's just 10 seconds. With movement, it's the same. Stay. Let the others move around. Or if everybody stands still, then you move. Move only if the other person moves. Keep yourself at 2 meters distance from everybody else on stage. Play with that idea, and I think you will find different things.
I think if the last one, for example, if you play at least 2 meters from everyone else, you immediately have a sort of a character you build, a personality. Yeah, it was always, for example, moving away if someone is approaching, and that gives immediately a certain dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or the other way around, stay too close to the other person all the time. Or, for instance, one very clear example is that we usually build tension when facing each other. You're in an argument in real life also. And at a certain point, you break from that tension, because otherwise you eat each other.
Yeah.
So this idea of breaking away is very interesting. But I think that usually as improvisers, we tend to break away too soon, before the tension builds.
Yeah.
There's one very dear friend, an amazing improviser and teacher from Argentina, Gonzalo Rodrigo. He explained this with a balloon, and she says drama builds out the tension accumulated in this balloon. You start to, at a certain point it will blow up. You don't know when, and that's the tension part. So eventually you can release some tension, and then again. And comedy, on the other hand, usually it's built through breaks. So it's basically pa, and you get out. Pa. And I think that's a good way of using both things. It's not that one is better than the other. But what happens if everybody's waiting for that? Okay, they're going to separate. They're going to move. They're going to talk. They're going to, and you don't. You hold it just a little longer. Then it's like, something is happening. And I like as a member of the audience, as a performer, I don't care what, but I have to be feeling something. Mm-hmm. If I don't feel anything, then I'm lost. Then I could be doing something else. So I try to put myself in situations where I can make myself and my partners feel something.
What a great way to describe the difference between comedy and narrative with a balloon. It's just,
the balloon.
It's great.
Yeah, we have to go to classes with a lot of balloons. Gonzalo Rodrigo, amazing improviser, amazing director, and one of the most interesting theorists of improvisation I know. He's very clear, he has very clear concepts, amazing person.
Feña, I have a question, for example, moving on stage, yes?
Yes.
Okay, you're talking about moving from left to right, yeah? But let's see, if you move, some actors may throw themselves on the floor, but then the people sitting at the back, they won't be able to see them. So is that not very good, again, not advisable?
It depends on the stage, depends on the theater, it depends on the situation. When I teach this, I take for granted that this is for a proper stage in a proper theater, but this doesn't mean that you cannot adapt it to a small stage in a bar. Yeah. Because you can do this in a 6 meter wide stage, or you can do it in a small 1 meter platform. The thing is to be aware of where you're standing and how you move. So if you are in a place that if you go to the floor, nobody will see you, then you might make that call because you want to disappear. It's very it means that nobody will see me when I'm gone. But if you are not aware of that, it's like speaking too low or being too quiet in a very crowded and noisy place. If you're aware, and this for me, this applies to everything, because improvisers, I speak improvisers, and we as community in a generic way, we always have an excuse. No, because we are professionals of making excuses, because that's what we do on stage, on the stories. But usually when you direct or make a mark, a direction, if you convince me that this was your clear choice, you can do whatever you want. But if you didn't notice, then let yourself be instructed or advised, because then you have this many choices. If you have just one choice, you're not really choosing. So you can do whatever you want, but you have to be sure that this is your choice, not something that you inherit or because you don't know there's another way of doing it.
What about moving on stage for editing purposes? Like some people just move in to say, okay, this is a scene, or some others not editing as in saying two people are in a scene and somebody just, what they call the Canadian cross, somebody just walks across.
You touched a very interesting subject. I think a couple of years ago, I made some noise on Facebook because of that. Because I don't understand, still don't understand how. No, let me rephrase. I would never use this somebody crossing, running in front of the scene to change, to edit. But again, if the people that are doing this are convinced that this is the perfect way, their favorite way to do it, go ahead. For me, it doesn't make any sense. But again, it's personal artistic decisions. So for me, it's also very interesting to divide what we do on stage in the fiction and in the reality, so to speak, the diegetic and the extra diegetic world. Because if part of, and it also means something what you do. For instance, if you're introducing a show, you're the MC, where do you stand? Usually you stand in upstage, no, downstage, I never remember the words in English, downstage, center, or in the middle with spotlight so everybody can see you, or right in the middle. It means something. But the moment somebody else is hosting with you, then it unbalances the stage. If somebody enters there, then you have to adapt. And that it's easier to identify because you are there and you are paying conscious attention. Your character, your MC character, it's also looking around. But when you are in the fiction, or when you're playing a scene, you have to disguise or to hide this awareness. I'm going to use one football analogy. I hope it's the only one. But usually when you play, a very good football player before receiving the ball does this, tuck, tuck, to watch if somebody else is around. Of course, when you have it inside you, you don't have to think about doing this. Well, this is the same. When you're playing, your character is looking this way, but you have to know everything that's happening somehow. So for me, it's harder to identify the balances and the composition of the space when you are playing, more than when you are either editing or in presenting or whatever.
So you wouldn't recommend that? You're not in favor of that, no?
Again, it's not a thing of recommendation. I wouldn't do it because I know I have other edits that I feel are more connected to what I hope for in a play. At the beginning, I say what I like about improvisation is to create theater pieces. Yeah. And I think we also have to relax on the idea that there are a million ways of using improvisation to create theater pieces, comedy shows, sketches, movies, whatever. For me, in my conception of theater, it's too invasive to have people running around me to edit scene. For the purposes of an improv show, great, maybe it works and it's clear and everybody identifies it. But I think edits, especially edits, and some resources that you can develop with your troupe had to be trained so you don't see this. You don't have to think about doing this. It's so natural, it's so incorporated that, for instance, if you do that, if you pull the Canadian move with people that don't use it or don't know it, it's very invasive.
Yeah.
If, for instance, I just move in front of you, it can feel also invasive, but it's more subtle. But again, that's what I like to have more subtleness, is that a word, on stage than fireworks.
I guess you don't want to break the reality of the theater piece. If you go to a theater, a scripted theater, you don't see people doing the Canadian move because a new scene happens.
Yes, but it's a very clear choice because there are pieces of modern theater that you can have somebody riding a ship, and if there's the artistic choice, great, then you deal with it. But for me, it's that I hate dogmas in general. So to have who decided that this is a universal edit, or who decided when I started the universal edit was clapping. Again, makes sense because it's very clear. You listen to that, it's Pavlov's dog. We eventually react to that. But with time, we identified that the edits that we liked were silent, were more fade in, fade out kind of stuff. Then we realized that if I have the technical tools, you can do this with lights, because basically that's what the lights are for. So if you fade them away with lights or sound, for me, it's better. But if you defend that, hey, we want to do this because it makes the show more dynamic, or because it's a good way to reset everything, great. Convince me. You don't have to convince me. But if I'm your director and you say, hey, we like this because of this and this, go, keep doing it. If you are not convinced, or you don't manage to convince me as a director, I will offer you different ways and try to convince the team, the group, the cast that this is how I like it. If you both like it, great, then we work with it.
Okay, in terms of moving on stage, there are other ways of people entering a scene, other improvisers entering a scene. When two people are doing a scene, what do you think about when people tag out somebody?
I think that's a more subtle way than the run around. And again, it depends on how you do it. Sometimes it's just perfect, because it has to do with the codes you have. Because if I tag you and you don't quite understand it and you stay, then I get, again, the mistake offer moment of I can play with you and also with you in a different scene. But just by doing this, I'm editing a scene. And again, the thrill of not knowing exactly if they're going to understand my offer is what keeps me motivated after 23 years. Is I could tag out, run around, or say clap, next scene, and that will be very clear and very safe. But I'm not here to play safe. I'm here to risk. And usually lately my offers are very, very open and very consciously to see what happens, to see what I find. So if I do this and I tag someone out and that person doesn't go out, then it's a perfect moment to find something else. Mm-hmm. Personally, what I teach my students is to use the eyes, the eye contact. If the two of you are on stage playing together and I want to play only with you, then I will look at you straight to your eyes, and that would mean that Johan has to go. And then after this contact, this negotiation, then I will find where I can give you my offer, in which part of the stage my offer makes more sense. And if I want to play with both of you and enter the scene, then I will go straight to both of you. And if I don't want to play with any of you, I will turn my backs to you. And if you don't understand, it doesn't matter. Nothing is permanent. That's what I like about this. Of course, again, if you know and you play with the same rules, with the same codes, with your team, with your cast, then these transitions are very smooth, but also safer. So when you are very, very comfortable with all the codes that you have with your cast, maybe once in a while you can surprise them and run.
I have one more question. Sorry, this is just so interesting subject. What would be the difference between what you call movement on stage and scene painting?
Well, for me, scene painting, as I understand it, is to describe the stage in a way that it's more detailed than using the props. And for me, it opens also a very poetic window. I just paint stage a window, right? And it's really interesting. And it's something that I do during this workshop. And I tell people that it's a good way to introduce a place, to make it very specific, and to reuse it. Because also as improvisers, we tend to build things, destroy them, and never use them again. It's like we have unlimited resources because we don't have to pay for that. We don't have to pay for the stage. We don't have to pay for the different characters, for the costumes. So it's for free. So we tend to be spoiled kids playing with new toys all the time. and I want to play like a poor kid that has to play with the same toy until the head falls apart. So coming back to that is, if I use, for instance, a stage painting technique to create an environment that connects with the performers and with the audience, then it's a good way, once you are playing in that space, to know where the important elements of that stage are and justify your moves. Because, for instance, if we are having an argument right in the center of the stage and I need to break out from that, then I can remember that there's a window there that I can open and get some air. Or I know that I put the coffee machine there and I need to have a coffee. Or maybe I just need to walk away and go to the nearest exit. Because, again, off stage is also a decision. Because some of these misconceptions of never leave your partner alone on stage unless they want to be alone on stage, or they will find something after an argument and I leave the stage. Me, as a member of the audience, I want to see your reaction, because that's maybe we see there the true personality, or all the things that this character was hiding because it was in front of my character. When this character is alone, maybe we find something. And it's the same when somebody enters. If somebody enters, something changes. And it's not the same if they enter from the side, from the other side, from the back, from the diagonal. Everything means something. And this is something I defend a lot, because instead of thinking and imagining new, interesting offers, is that everything is an offer. You just have to be clear. So if you just walk past the scene, what just happened? Feña just walked by. It means something. It's like Johan's coughing. Everything is an offer.
You don't walk across the table that you have already painted before.
Just like, you always cross someone's table.
By the way,
that's why you don't put the table in number 5.
And by the way, the coughing you mentioned, Johan's coughing, that was in the scene we've done together, which will also be on the channel soon.
Yeah.
Feña, you're also giving workshops about stage movements. So if people would like to get in contact or follow a workshop, how can they get in contact with you?
Yes, the class I teach, when I teach this, called Now You See It. And it's basically because during the whole workshop, I put tape in the floor with 9 squares, like a grid of 9 squares, and now you see it. Because if you actually see the lines, and then people say that you get them here and they never stop seeing the grid anywhere they go. So this is the class I usually teach. Right now, I'm going to teach it next week in Gothenburg Festival in Sweden, and and the following week in Irreverente in Lisbon, and whatever they call me. And unfortunately, this is not a good workshop to teach online.
There are not much stage movements online.
Basically, you have to have like a
yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Feña, many thanks for joining us. It was great chatting with you about movements on stage and edits as well. And in the next episode, Chat 16, with SomerSand, we will talk about a different topic with you. So
yes.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah. Thank you, Feña. See you soon. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.